Hi, my name is Lisa, and I'll be discussing looking glass syndrome or mirror agnosia. So, mirror agnosia is caused by a stroke or damage to the right parietal lobe, and this damage will sometimes cause what is called hemispatial neglect, which means that patients who have suffered a stroke in this area will fail to perceive the left visual field. Now, it's not that they're blind, it's simply failed perception. And so, mirror agnosia was discovered when they were trying to come up with a way to assist patients who were suffering from hemispatial neglect. So, what they did was they took a mirror and they placed it to the right ventral parasagittal side of the patient, and they established that it was a mirror and that mirrors show reflections and that the patient understood this. And then they took an object, a pen for example, and placed it within reach over the left shoulder of the patient. And then they asked the patient to reach for the object. And what they found time and time again was that instead of reaching for the physical object, the patient would reach for the reflected object, the reflection. And they would become frustrated and they would say, oh, the object is in the mirror, or it's behind the mirror, or it's out of my reach. And so they also did this with patients who had suffered a stroke in the same area, but who had not suffered hemi-neglect. And so what they found with those patients is that they had no difficulties reaching for the object. And so Ramachandran theorized that it was either a result of hemispatial neglect or spatial deficit, and what numerous other studies found was that it was a little bit of both, that mirror agnosia was only found in patients with hemispatial neglect and vice versa. Patients with hemispatial neglect have mirror agnosia. And so a less severe form is mirror ataxia, which is also a form of a spatial deficit. However, patients with this have a smaller damaged area on the right side, and it usually tends to be closer to the temporal lobe than the parietal lobe. And so patients with mirror ataxia, they will, under the same conditions, they will reach sometimes for the mirror. Other times they will reach for the object, but miss it by a long shot. And so an image that illustrates this example is this one here. As you can see, the gentleman has no trouble reaching for the object. However, when utilizing the mirror to reach for the object, has greater difficulty. And as we can see here in this image, this patient has no difficulty reaching for the object until they are presented with the mirror, and then they reach for the reflection of the object in the mirror. And this uses a coronal mirror, so it's back here, instead of the ventral paralagittal, but it has the same effect. And so using MRI technology, we found that patients with mirror agnosia tend to have larger areas of damage to that right lobe than those with mirror ataxia. And within mirror ataxia, there are two forms. There's severe and then there's moderate. And as we can see here, those with severe damage also have severe ataxia. And those with Smaller damaged areas have just moderate mirror ataxia. So, some interesting things to consider, how hemispatial neglect and mirror agnosia have this strongly correlating relationship. Some references, and thank you so much for watching.